On this episode of the Getting Rooted podcast, self abandonment doesn't usually look like walking away from yourself. It looks like slowly leaving yourself behind while taking care of everyone else. Last time we talked about why we keep putting ourselves last. Today, we're going one layer deeper because putting yourself last isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of something with a name: self abandonment. And it's not the same thing as burnout. Burnout is the symptom. This is what's underneath it.
Let's get rooted with Getting Rooted, Rooted Podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to Getting Rooted. I'm your host, Jeanine Hansel-Frimpong, therapist, coach, and someone who is very much on this realignment journey right alongside you. Every other Tuesday, we sit down for an honest conversation about what it actually looks like to stop surviving and start realigning your life. And today's conversation might be one of the most important ones we've had this season. So, friend, can we talk about something? Can we talk about why we keep abandoning ourselves? And you know me, all I can do is be honest. And I want to be honest with you. There was a season of my life when every decision I made revolved around someone else's needs. And I want to paint the actual picture for you because I don't think this hits until you see it in the details. Because it wasn't one big dramatic thing. It was the accumulation of 100 small things happening at once. It was answering a message at 10 at night because it felt urgent, even though it could have waited until morning. It was saying, of course, I've got it, before I'd even check whether I actually had the capacity to get it. It was sitting in a room full of people who needed something from me, and somewhere in the back of my mind thinking, I haven't eaten today. And just letting that thought pass by because there wasn't time to do anything with it. It was showing up early for everyone else and being the last one anyone thought to show up for. Do you know the question I stopped asking? What do I need? And it's not because I didn't have needs. I promise you, I had needs. I had exhaustion I wasn't naming. I had grief I wasn't processing. I had a body that was sending me every signal it possibly could. I just got so used to putting myself last that it stopped feeling like a sacrifice. It just felt normal. And here's the part that I think is the most important part of this whole story, because I kept telling myself a version of the same sentence over and over again, which was, once things settle down, I'll rest. Or once I catch up on everything, I'll take care of myself. Or, oh, once this season passes, I'll go back to exercising, back to reading books, back to the things that used to make me feel like me. I even have said when I had a group practice that once the business stabilizes, I'll be able to fill in the blank. Once my son is a little older, once I'm not needed quite so much, then. But then kept moving. It always does. There is no version of adult life where the list finishes itself and hands you a permission to rest. I know that now. And I did not know that then. And I remember the exact moment it clicked for me because it wasn't this dramatic, over the top moment. It wasn't a crisis that was happening. I was just sitting in my car in a parking lot. The engine was off. And before I was supposed to be on for the next thing, I had this quiet, almost embarrassing realization. I wasn't making one big decision to neglect myself. I was making hundreds of tiny decisions every single day. And every single one of them said the same thing: everyone else first. And it wasn't because I was weak. It wasn't because I didn't care about myself, but because somewhere along the way, putting myself last had became so automatic that I didn't even experience it as a choice anymore. Now, the thing is, if any part of that sounds familiar, I want you to hear me say this clearly, because you're not alone in it. And you're not being, what's the word they use, dramatic for feeling the weight of it. Because I've sat across from so many women in the therapy room, in coaching sessions, in conversations after church, in my DMs after my podcast go live, who describe some version of exactly this. And it doesn't matter what your specific role is. It shows up if you're a mom. It shows up if you're a single lady or a woman and carrying a household alone. It shows up if you're leading a team or leading a ministry or building a business or even caregiving for someone you love, or all of it stack on top of each other at once. And here's what I want to name today, because I think it's the missing piece in most of the burnout conversations we hear. Because this is not the same thing as burnout. This is what happens before burnout, right? This is what self abandonment actually looks like in real life. And it really looks like what we picture, right? We picture self-abandonment as some big, obvious moment, like walking away from your dreams or giving up on yourself completely, like a clean, dramatic break. But that is almost never what it actually looks like. What it actually looks like is so much quieter than that. It's the automatic yes. Before you've even asked yourself if you had the capacity, it's the postponed need, the doctor's appointment you keep pushing, the conversation you keep avoiding, the rest you keep promising yourself later. It's the feeling you talk yourself out of because you generally do not have time to feel it right now. It's the dream you keep saying someday to, until someday quietly stops meaning anything at all. And none of these moments feel like abandonment while they're happening, because each one of them on its own feels reasonable, right? It feels responsible, even. It's only when you step back and look at the patterns across weeks, across the months, even the years. And that's when you see what actually's been happening. Now, in preparing for this episode, it takes a lot of insight and a lot of introspection for me to really look at where I was and where I'm at now. And so, as I was doing this introspection work, looking inside of myself, because I do that before I come and talk to anyone about anything, because I want to make sure that I've taken the time to search myself. And so, here's what I want you to sit with today, because I think this might be one of the most important sentences we say all season. Self abandonment doesn't usually look like walking away from yourself. It looks like slowly leaving yourself behind while taking care of everyone else. I want to say that again slower, because I think it deserves the space. Self abandonment doesn't usually look like walking away from yourself. It looks like slowly leaving yourself behind while taking care of everyone else. Because here's a distinction I really want to draw out today. Burnout is the symptom. Self-abandonment is the pattern underneath it. We talk about burnout constantly in the wellness world, the exhaustion, the shutdown, the I generally cannot do this anymore feeling. And that's real and it matters. And if that's where you are right now, I see you. But here's what I don't think we talk about enough, because burnout doesn't start the day you fall apart, right? It starts months, sometimes years earlier, in all the small moments where you choose everyone else over yourself. And it didn't even register that you were making that choice. Let me break it down, because this is what it actually looks like, because I think it helps to see the anatomy of it. Right? The automatic yes. This is agreeing before you've checked in with yourself. Not because you're a pushover, because saying yes has become the reflex. And asking, do I actually have this to give, has stopped even being part of the process. Okay? So the first part of the anatomy of self abandonment looks like the automatic yes. The second thing is the postponed need. This is the appointment, the rest, the boundary, the conversation you keep meaning to get to. Not because it isn't important, because everything else always seems to be more urgent every single time. Okay. The third part of the anatomy is the ignored feelings. This is the sadness, the resentment, the grief, the anger you notice, and then immediately set down because there isn't a room. There's no room to be angry right now, right? And it's not because the feeling isn't valid, because you've trained yourself to function without processing it. Sound familiar? The next part of the anatomy is the delayed dream. This is the thing you used to want for yourself: the class, the trip, the creative project, the relationship, the career shift that quietly moved to Sunday and then quietly stopped being mentioned at all. When was the last time you even thought about those things? Any one of these by itself is completely human. But all four compounding every day for years, that's how a woman who deeply loves and cares for the people around her ends up completely disconnected from herself without ever making a single decision that looked like abandonment from the outside. So I want to be really clear about something, because I don't want you to walk away from this episode thinking the takeaway is stop caring about people so much. And this isn't a lecture about boundaries you should have set 5 years ago. If you're someone who gives a lot, a mom, a partner, a caregiver, a leader, a friend, a therapist, a business owner, that capacity to show up for people is not the problem. It's actually one of the most beautiful things about you. And I don't ever want to talk you out of that. The problem isn't that you show up for others. The problem is that somewhere along the way, you quietly stop being on the list of people worth showing up for. You didn't decide that on purpose. Nobody sits down and thinks, I'm no longer worth taking care of. Right? It happens by omission and not by intention. It happens because the list got long and you were the only name on it that could be moved without anyone ever noticing. So here's a reframe I want to leave you with. Taking care of yourself isn't the thing you do after everyone else is taken care of. It's not some reward you unlock once the list is finished, because the list is never finished. And you'll continue to hear me say that. The list is never finished because there's some phenomenon that makes us believe that there's this list and there's a beginning and end to it, right? We feel like a list should have a beginning to end. But in life, in adulting, there's no such thing, right? There is no version of your life, no matter how organized you get, no matter how much you accomplish, where the list finally says, done, and hands you permission to rest. There is no such thing. But asking, what do I need, isn't selfish. I want to say that plainly because I know for a lot of us that care and wants to do and be there for people, it lands as selfish the first 100 times we try it. It's not selfish. It's maintenance. It's the thing that lets you keep showing up for the people you love, for the work that matters to you. Because instead of running on empty until one day you genuinely cannot show up at all. And I tell my clients that all the time, and they look at me and I'm like, your job, one day when you cannot do it, they will say, oh, okay. And then we'll move on. But you kept giving, giving, giving and not taking care of yourself. So instead of running on empty, you need to start taking care of you. And here's a small but important shift. Instead of asking, what does everyone need from me today? Try adding one more name to that question. What do I need today too? You don't have to make yourself the only priority. You just have to stop being the only person left off the list entirely. So I want to do something a little different for a second. Wherever you are right now, driving, walking, folding laundry, I want to invite you to actually pause with me for just a moment. Okay? You pause? Good. Think of one thing right now that you've been postponing. Just one. It might be small, like a phone call, an appointment, 5 minutes of quiet. It might be bigger, like a conversation, a decision, a dream you stop mentioning out loud. You don't have to do anything about it yet. Just notice it. Let yourself see it clearly, maybe for the first time in a while. That noticing, that's where this actually starts. You don't have to overhaul your entire life to begin. You don't need a 5-step plan or a total life audit. You just have to start asking the question you stopped asking. What do I need? Ask it once a day this week. That's it. You don't even have to act on the answer every time. Just start asking it out loud or in your head and let yourself get used to hearing your own answer again. Now it's time for the rooted recap. All right, let's get into the rooted recap, the part where I bring it all home. So, one truth to carry with you: self abandonment doesn't usually look like walking away from yourself. It looks like slowly leaving yourself behind while taking care of everyone else. I want you to write that out and put it somewhere that you continue to look at it and see it and remind yourself. On your refrigerator, on your mirror in your bathroom, on your screensaver, on your phone, or on the computer, whatever it is, or wherever it is, I want you to write it out. Make it plain. Okay? And this week's invitation is that once a day this week, I want you to pause and ask yourself the question, what do I need right now? You don't have to act on the answer yet. Just start asking. Just start asking. You'll be amazed what may come up. And before we meet back here next time, I want you to ask yourself, where in my life have I been saying yes automatically without checking in with myself first? It's kind of like an automatic withdrawal, like when they automatic recurring payment. Like that's what it has become. You automatically say yes without thinking, is there money in the bank? Is there money in the account? Right? Like, so I want you to check in with yourself. Where are you saying yes automatically? So if this episode names something you've been living without having words for, that's not something to fix overnight, and it doesn't need to be at all. It's the beginning of rooted living, learning to stop holding everything together and start making the small, sustainable changes that let you breathe again. And if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, I get it, Jeanine, but I need something I can actually use in real time when I feel like this, I got you, girl. I have a simple 5-minute overwhelm reset for exactly that. And guess what? It's free. Click the link that's in the description of this video. And if this episode names something you're ready to actually do something about, there's also an application in the description of this video, and that's where we work and do some deeper work together. When you're ready, no pressure, just a real next step whenever it's time. So stay rooted in your truth and take care of your mind, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Let's get rooted with getting rooted, rooted podcast. Digging in deep, getting at the truth, finding your peace at the lantern root, growing into a brand new you with rooted. Let's get